As it's been reported and authentically narrated from the one who doesn't speak of his own desires, but whatever he hears is related, that on the day when the sun is a mile above their heads and there's severe exhaustion, a day which is not 24 hours but 50,000 years in duration, with you and I there, people will be frantically looking for a solution, but glad tidings to the honored seven who will be in a blessed situation. The first of them is the one who ruled with justice, and not with his whims and desires, but in his practice. He listened to both sides of the story and said, "We'll discuss this." A leader in whose authority was nothing but fairness, like the leader of the believers on his journey to the Holy Land, and upon entering, he told his companion to stay on the animal while he keeps walking, and said that my turn is over, so you stay on the animal and keep riding. A man of justice who the world admires his rulings. The second is a young man who grows up in the worship of his Lord, always conscious of Allah, and with good deeds he never got bored. To abandon his faith and disobey Allah he couldn't afford. He prayed for his parents and his prayers were accepted, just as we were told. Remember, the gates of paradise are up to 8, so one could come with actions that are heavy in weight, and perhaps he could enter paradise through Al-Rayyan straight. For indeed those who fast will be entered into paradise through this gate. The third is the one who had deep love for the houses of Allah. He responded to the call of success 5 times a day. Indeed, he will be successful on this overwhelming day, for he was also there when the call was made for Jum'ah on Friday. From Fajr, which is better than sleep, to Isha in the evening, of which if you knew the reward you would attend, even if you had to come crawling. The events in the mosque this person was surely attending. Indeed, his heart was attached to it, and indeed he was never compromising. Also, those who loved one another for Allah's sake, they met and parted for that reason, so their relation didn't break. You know, loving your brother for the pleasure of Allah and not for any worldly gain, whether his status was high or low, but still your love remained. Remember the man who was given glad tidings for visiting a friend. When asked, he said, "I don't need anything from him except I love him for Allah's sake." So it will be asked, that where are those who loved one another for the sake of Allah? And of course, if you do love your brother, then tell him, for that is the sunnah. The next to be called will be a man who was invited by a woman of rank, but his fear of Allah was greater than his urge to fulfill his desire. What can I tell you about those who suppress their evil desires and fear the position of their Lord? For indeed paradise is what they will acquire. Of course this is hard, but what about the story of the noble prophet who was betrayed by his brothers and sold for a small profit? His beauty was such that some thought he was an angel, and when invited to commit immorality to his Lord he was fearful. Amongst them is the one who gave charity in secret, to the extent that his left hand didn't know what his right had spent. Perhaps there is no harm in giving in the open than to give alone, but perhaps some would prefer to aim for the shade of the throne, like the one who used to take care of the old woman without the awareness or knowledge of anyone. Remember, charity will provide shade on the day of resurrection, so one should seek the pleasure of Allah and not the people's appreciation. Lastly will be the one who remembered Allah in private and he shed tears, the one who was more concerned of the hereafter than the worldly affairs. Perhaps he took account of himself before account was taken on him, and perhaps he weighed his actions before his actions were weighed for him. Remember, the hellfire will not touch the eye that remembered Allah and teared, like those who when the verses of the Most Merciful were recited, they prostrated. Those who their hearts moved, their skin shivered, and their eyes teared. Indeed, the punishment of their Lord they feared. So this is the day when the sun is a mile above their heads and there is severe exhaustion. A day which is not 24 hours but 50,000 years in duration. Indeed, people will be looking for a solution, but glad tidings to the honored seven who will be in a blessed situation.